There is a sound that stops every dog owner cold. You are in another room, perhaps folding laundry or sitting at your desk, and from somewhere in the house comes a sound so small, so quiet, that you almost miss it. A soft whimper, a single exhale that carries something inside it that you cannot name, and you stop whatever you are doing, and you go to them, every time, because something in that sound reaches past your thinking mind and lands directly in your chest, in the oldest, most instinctive part of you that recognizes pain in another living creature and cannot ignore it. Most people call it crying, and most people believe they understand what it means. They are wrong, not partially wrong, not wrong in a minor technical sense, wrong in a way that, once corrected, will permanently change how you hear every sound your dog makes, and what you do in response. Because your dog does not cry the way you cry. The machinery behind that sound, the biology, the neurology, the evolutionary purpose, is something so layered, so ancient, and so precise that modern science has only recently begun to map it with any accuracy. And what researchers have found is not what anyone expected. The first thing to understand is what a dog's vocalization system actually is, and what it is not. Human crying is a layered act. It involves the lacrimal gland producing tears in response to emotional stimulation, routed through the limbic system. It involves the contraction of the orbicularis oculi muscle around the eye. It involves specific vocal cord tension patterns that produce the characteristic broken, wavering sound of a sob. Dogs have lacrimal glands. Dogs produce tears. But for the majority of canine evolutionary history, those tears served one purpose only: lubrication and protection of the ocular surface. Research published in the journal Current Biology in 2022 by Dr. Takefumi Kikusui and his team at Azabu University in Japan delivered a finding that shook the entire field of canine cognition. When dogs were reunited with their owners after a period of separation, their eyes produced measurably more tears than when they were reunited with a non-owner familiar human. The emotional bond, the specific, neurochemically distinct bond between a dog and its primary attachment figure, was producing a tear response. Not allergies, not irritation, not a reflex, an emotional tear response tied to a specific relationship. This was the first empirical evidence that dogs produce something functionally analogous to emotional tears, not identical to human crying, but rooted in the same oxytocin-driven attachment architecture. Your dog's eyes fill when they see you after a long absence. Take a moment with that. But the whimper, the sound itself, is an entirely different biological instrument. To understand what your dog is actually communicating when they vocalize distress, you have to go back approximately 15,000 years to the moment when the wolf and the human first began their long conversation. Wild wolves are, by evolutionary necessity, acoustically restrained animals. In a predator-prey landscape, unnecessary vocalization is a survival liability. It reveals location, it signals weakness, it attracts danger. Wolf pups whimper. Adult wolves, in the wild, almost never do. But something extraordinary happened during the domestication process. Something that researchers at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology in Leipzig, Germany, have studied extensively through comparative vocalization analysis between wolves and domestic dogs. Dogs developed an expanded acoustic repertoire specifically calibrated to human emotional perception. Read that again. Dogs did not simply keep their wolf vocalizations. They evolved new ones, or dramatically amplified existing ones, that were specifically shaped by thousands of years of human response. Every time a dog made a sound, and a human responded with care, comfort, or attention, that sound was reinforced. Over hundreds of generations, the dogs whose vocalizations most effectively triggered human, caregiving responses were the ones that survived, thrived, and reproduced. Your dog's whimper is not a random expression of feeling. It is a 15,000-year-old precision instrument, evolutionarily sculpted to reach directly into the human nervous system and activate your caregiving response. Now consider the neurological side of this. What is actually happening inside your dog when they make that sound? Research from the Canine Cognition Center at Yale University, alongside studies published in Animal Cognition, has used cortisol measurement and heart rate variability analysis to map the internal physiological states that accompany different dog vocalizations. When a dog whimpers during separation, cortisol levels, the primary stress hormone, rise measurably within minutes. The hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the same neurochemical stress pathway that activates in humans during fear or grief, activates in dogs during owner separation with a hormonal signature that is functionally similar to what humans experience during social loss. Your dog is not performing distress for your benefit. Their body is living it. The autonomic nervous system shifts into a low-grade alert state. Heart rate elevates slightly. Respiration becomes shallower. The dog's attention narrows and focuses, scanning the environment for the missing attachment figure. This is not anxiety in the colloquial sense. This is the precise neurobiological response of a social mammal who has registered the absence of the central member of their attachment group. There is another layer to this that almost no one talks about. Dogs do not vocalize distress uniformly. They modulate. They adjust the acoustic properties of their vocalizations based on context, audience, and learned response patterns. Dr. Sophia Yin, the late and widely respected veterinary behaviorist, whose work through the University of California, Davis continues to shape modern canine ethology, documented through acoustic analysis that dogs produce measurably different vocalizations when their owner is present versus when they are alone. When the owner is present, vocalizations tend to be higher in pitch, shorter in duration, and more frequent, a pattern that in acoustic terms resembles infant distress calls directed at a caregiver. When the owner is absent, vocalizations shift, lower, longer, more haunting. The dog is not crying to you the same way it cries without you. It knows whether or not you can hear it, and it adjusts accordingly. This level of communicative sophistication, context-sensitive, audience-aware, acoustically modulated emotional expression, was once considered exclusive to primates. Your dog has been doing it every day of their life with you. And then there is the silent cry, the one that most owners never recognize at all. Canine distress does not always produce sound. Research from the Animal Welfare Science Group at Bristol University, building on decades of ethological observation, has identified a cluster of behavioral and physiological signals that represent what can only be described as quiet suffering in dogs. Yawning outside of fatigue context. Lip licking with no food present. Whale eye, where the white of the eye becomes partially visible as the dog turns their head away, while keeping their gaze fixed. Flattened ears held slightly back. A tail carried low, but not tucked. Weight shifted subtly backward. These are not random nervous habits. These are the acoustic equivalent of a whisper. Distress signals too small for most human observers to register, produced by a dog who has learned, through experience, that louder expressions of discomfort are not responded to. A dog who has stopped making the audible cry is not a dog who is fine. It is often a dog who has simply learned that crying does not bring relief. That realization, when it lands, tends to land hard. But here is where the science becomes something more than science. Here is where it becomes something that changes the way you sit with your dog in the quiet moments. The same research from Dr. Kikusui's team at Azabu University that documented emotional tear production in dogs also measured something else, something that speaks directly to the nature of this bond. When owners looked into their dog's eyes during reunion, when that mutual gaze was held for even 30 seconds, oxytocin levels rose in both the human and the dog simultaneously. The same neurochemical that bonds a mother to a newborn child, rising in both species, at the same moment, in response to each other. Your dog's cry reaches you, not because they have learned to manipulate you, though the evolutionary mechanics do involve learned reinforcement. It reaches you because over 15,000 years, your two species built something in each other, a a shared emotional language, a mutual neurochemical vocabulary, a bond written not in words, but in hormones and heartbeats, and the specific frequency of a sound that travels across a room and lands, without fail, in the center of your chest. When your dog cries, something ancient in you responds, and something ancient in them, something that has been reaching toward you across 15 millennia of shared history, is simply doing what it was shaped to do, calling you back. If this gave you a new way to hear your dog, a deeper, more precise, more compassionate way, then Canine Mind and Care has done what it exists to do. We do not make content about dogs. We make content about the extraordinary, scientifically documented, evolutionarily ancient relationship between dogs and the humans who love them. Subscribe to this channel so that every time we publish something new, it finds you. And in the comments below, tell us about the moment your dog's cry stopped you completely. What did you do? Where were you? What did it feel like? Tell us, because every story left in the comments below is proof that this bond is real, and we read every single one.